Bible again, reading in verse number 6. Romans 12, verse 6. We have many different gifts according to the grace given to us. If a man's gift is prophesying, let him use it in proportion to his faith. If it's serving, let him serve. If it's teaching, let him teach. If it's encouraging, let him encourage. If it's contributing to the needs of others, let him give generously. If it's leadership, let him govern diligently. If it's showing mercy, let him do it cheerfully. Daniel Webster was a powerful speaker, and he tells the following story. One day his father was absent from the home, and he left Daniel and Ezekiel some instructions. On his return home, his father found the task that he had given them left undone. So he began to question his sons about their idleness or their lack of not doing anything. So he looked and he said, "What have you been doing, Ezekiel?" He said, "Nothing, sir." "Well, Daniel, what have you been doing?" "Helping my brother." But you know, doesn't that sound like folks today? People say, "Why should I do something for God if no one else is doing anything? Why should I do something down at the local church if no one else is doing anything? Or I don't see anybody else doing anything around here. Why should I do anything?" And so we may falsely assume that the church is going to grow. It's the preacher's responsibility to make it happen. And if it doesn't happen, it's the preacher's fault. So tonight, I want to ask, what plans do you have to serve the Lord? Are you thinking about volunteering to do something in God's house? There's once a sign on a stage that said, "The motionless man, make him laugh and win $100. The temptation was just irresistible. For 3 hours, boys and girls, men and women, told every single joke they knew, trying to make the man laugh. But Bill Pupla, the motionless man, stood perfectly still as joke after joke was told. Pupla discovered this unique talent at the age of 14 while standing motionless in front of a Christmas tree as a joke. Now he admits that once in a while he has to blink and occasionally he has to breathe. Sometimes he appears so motionless at shopping malls that people think that he is actually a mannequin. But you know, the motionless man sounds like a lot of churches today. Churches and individuals have mastered the art of almost doing nothing. And so, don't let that be said about us as individuals. Let us serve the Lord joyfully and gladly and do what God has called us to do. Now tonight, I want us to think about 4 gifts that we all can use to serve God. 4 gifts that we can use, or 4 areas that all of us can serve God. Now if we go back to verse number 8, he talks about encouraging. That's the first one. We all can be encouragers. The story that's told about a preacher leaving this particular church, and at his farewell dinner, he tried to encourage the members by saying, "Don't be sad. The next preacher may actually be better than me." Well, one member stood up and said, "That's what the last preacher said, but it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse." I'm sure that preacher left discouraged. William Ward once said, "Flatter me, and I may not believe you. Criticize me, and I may not like you. Adore me, and I may not forgive you. But encourage me, and I will never forget you." The gift of encouragement is very special. Not everyone has that gift, or everyone should encourage, but there are folks who have a special gift in that particular area. But all of us can be encouragers. Now, what is encouragement? Encouragement is something that builds people up. Look back at Romans, or look over Romans chapter 15, verses 1 and 2. Notice it says, "We who are strong ought to bear with the failings of the weak and not to please ourselves. Each of us should please his neighbor for his good." Now notice. Why? To build him up. I've heard it said, if it doesn't build people up, then don't do it. Look at 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse number 8. "For even if I boast somewhat freely about the authority the Lord gave us for the building you up rather than pulling you down." So here again, Paul is talking about we ought to be in the business of building people up. Look over at Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful, for building up others according to their needs. So we ought to be in the building up business. Words are to build up people. We're in the building business. So everything we say or do should build people up. During quail season, there's an Atlanta journalist who met an old farmer hunting with the old dog by his side. Twice the dog ran ahead and pointed, and twice his master fired up into the open air. When the journalist looked around, he didn't see any birds that flew. So he asked the farmer, "Why didn't you fire up in the air when your dog pointed?" He said, "You know, I knew there was no birds in the grass. Spot's nose ain't what it used to be, but me and him have had some wonderful times together, and he's still doing the best that he can. It will be mighty mean of me not to encourage him at this stage of the game." You know, that takes something, doesn't it? Look at Ephesians chapter 6, verse 21 and 22. Notice Paul says, "Tychicus, the dear brother and faithful services in the Lord, will tell you everything, so that you may also know how I am and what I am doing." So Paul said, "I'm sending him to encourage you, to help you." Charles Schwab once said, "I consider my ability to arouse enthusiasm among men the greatest possession I have. The way to develop the best in a man is by appreciation and encouragement." So not everybody in this room, we can encourage. We ought to be encouragers. You know, some better than others, some have to give more than others, but all of us tonight can speak words that build somebody up. Number two, the second gift I see here is contributing. Notice back in chapter 12, verse number 8, it talks about contributing to the needs of others. Look at Philippians chapter 4, verses 10 through 13. "I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you have renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you have been concerned, but you have no opportunity to show it." Look at verse 11. "I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I've learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need. I know what it's like to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do everything through Him who gives me strength." Now, what's Paul talking about? Paul's talking about a renewed financial concern. And I'm not sure if that's the correct passage. I think it was right before that. But anyway, the Philippians helped Paul financially. And the way we can help others is contributing to the needs of other individuals, because when we contribute, God always blesses us. I heard a preacher one time that told the following. He said, "One of my members is a multi-millionaire, and this multi-millionaire once walked up to his pastor and said, 'Let me know if you need any money. I have plenty for both of us.' Well, his friend was standing right there and says, 'Well, if that church needs a preacher, please let me know.'" But tonight, we can all contribute. Some can contribute more financially than others. But when we talk about contributing, it's not just money. One of the greatest needs in our church sometimes is just contributing time. Now, did y'all look in the foyer when you came in? Anybody see it this morning, tonight? When you go out, look, it's painted. We got a fresh coat of paint on the ceiling, the walls. Fellowship Hall has been painted. The reason I'm saying this, Gary came down and let the guy in, assisted the guy, got what he needed. He contributed time. He gave his time. And sometimes time is a great thing to give to the church, because a lot of times people can give money, but if you got money, still somebody has to do some things. And so all of us can contribute financially. We can also contribute with our time to God's house. But then let's move on. It says, if it's leadership, let him govern diligently. So the third way is through leadership. Winston Churchill was an inspirational leader during the time that Nazi Germany was trying to take over the world. But Winston Churchill was also something of a humorist. Hitler had announced a rally during the Battle of Britain that Germany would wring England's neck like a helpless chicken. Churchill stood the next day in Parliament and said that Hitler was in for a big surprise, because he would find out that England is a chicken with some big neck. Churchill's words were inspiring to the country, and Churchill's words demonstrates that leaders need to rise above their circumstances. Cal Thomas, which I see him occasionally on the news, I don't see him as often as I used to, but he wrote, "In a church I once attended, there's a man of tremendous faith. His wife is an alcoholic. His daughter had all kinds of problems. He was often in poor health. Yet week after week he came to church and he never complained about anything. He always smiled and asked how others were doing around him. Also, he faithfully brought to church a young blind man who had no transportation. He always sat with the blind man, helping him sing the hymns by repeating the words in his ear so that the blind man could sing." Folks, that's a Christian leader, if I've ever seen one. Tony Evans, the black preacher out of Dallas, said, "Leadership in the local church should always be determined by spirituality, not notoriety. Just because somebody's notable in a community doesn't mean that they will make a good leader in the church. Being spiritual should always be the dominating factor in determining whether or not a person will be a good leader." Look at 1 Timothy chapter 3, verses 2 and 3. Now the overseer must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, temperate, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not given to drunkenness, not violent, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. And so a person who is a leader in a church ought to be spiritual. Matthew Henry, the Bible scholar, went to London one day. He met a young woman who was very wealthy, and they fell in love. She went to ask her father if she could marry Matthew Henry, and this is what her father said. Matthew Henry has no background. You don't know where he's come from. She looked at her father and said, "Yes, I know, but I know where he's going, and I want to go with him." A leader knows where he's going. As people here tonight, and this is the leaders of our church, we ought to know where we're going as individuals, but we also ought to know where we're going as a church body. And tonight, all of us who are here tonight can lead. We can lead. The fourth thing, notice it says, if he's showing mercy, let him do it cheerfully. In other words, tonight, everybody here can demonstrate mercy. President Calvin Coolidge woke up one morning there in the White House and he found a burglar going through his pockets. He spoke up and asked the burglar not to take his watch chain because it contained a charm they wanted to keep. Coolidge kept talking with the burglar and discovered that this young man was actually a college student who had no money to pay his way back to campus. Coolidge, counting $32 out of his wallet, called it a loan and advised the young man to leave the way he came so that he might avoid the Secret Service. Coolidge was a man of mercy. Coolidge could have thrown the young man into jail. After General Lee surrendered there at Appomattox Courthouse, Lincoln spoke from a balcony of the White House. He was announcing the policy that he had in mind for the South after the end of the Civil War. At the end of his speech, there was a Senator Harlan who asked, "What shall we do with the rebels?" The crowd shouted, "Hang them." President Lincoln's son, Tad, was there, turned to his father and said, "No, Paul, not hang them. We need to hang on to them." Hanging on to someone in spite of their guilt and their sin is an act of mercy. Mercy is what we want, but mercy is not what we always give ourselves. Matthew chapter 5, verse 7 says this, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." You know, if Jesus had laid down the law on the woman who was caught in adultery, she would have been stoned. There would have been no doubt about it. He would not have told her about the living water, but he decided that that was the best thing to do rather than stone her. If Jesus had laid down the law, there's not a single leper that would never have been healed. If Jesus would have laid down the law, no one could actually ever be saved. But God showed mercy toward us, and we need to show mercy toward others. Irma Bombeck once said, and this is what I really want us to end with tonight, and this is why I want to be fresh on your minds when we leave here tonight. She said this: when I stand before God at the end of my life, I would hope that I would not have a single bit of talent left, and I could stand and look before God and say, God, I used every single thing that you gave me. Wouldn't it be great if every one of us could say that as we stood before God? We could say, God, I don't have a single bit of talent left. I used every single bit of it that you gave me. I used everything you gave me. You see, we must use what God gives us to bless others, anywhere, anytime, and any place. Let's stand for word of prayer. Father, help us to always use what you've given us. We know that some have been given more than others, but all of us have received something that we can give. Help us to give back to your work, to further your work in whatever way you can. Father, tonight I pray that someone might be convicted and as they're thinking about their life and they're saying, Lord, I'm only giving you 50%, or I'm only giving you 60%. I pray that all of us tonight will leave here tonight with a commitment saying, Lord, I'm going to give 100% to your efforts. I'm going to give it all to you because you've given it all to me. Father, I pray tonight that that will be our prayer tonight. In Christ's name I pray. Anybody need to say anything else before we go? Joey, would you lead our closing prayer?
Father, we come before you throne tonight. Father, we're just thankful that you love us, Father, that you sent Jesus to rescue us. Father, thank you for this word tonight. Just thank you for piercing our hearts. Father, as you remind us that this life is not about us, Father, this life is about you. We just ask you to forgive us now for the fellowship. Father, we just pray you fill us with your spirit this week. Father, help us go out this week and honor you, Father.